Hey everybody, welcome to another webinar entitled NLP in Sports. NLP is Neuro-Linguistic Programming, okay? So it's using the power of your mind to reach peak performance. So in this little short webinar, it's gonna be about 15, 20 minutes, really short. We're gonna go through how to reach peak performance using Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Neuro-Linguistic Programming essentially is using the power of your mind to reframe, reassociate, and control how you think in order to perform and behave in an optimal way, okay? So just for those of you who don't know, my name is Mendy Dubov. I am the founder of Yellow Mentality. Yellow Mentality is a coaching firm that we have a relationship division, we have a business career development division, as well as a peak performance division. I am the peak performance coach. So in this webinar, again, we're going to go through the NLP of sports, how to reach peak performance using NLP, okay? So NLP teaches that we are tools to process information in different ways depending on how our brain is wired, okay? So we take in information, the world or the environment essentially gives us information that we take in, and then we interpret it in our own ways, each person differently through our five senses, okay? So the world throws something at you. Let's say you're going to dinner with somebody and they're late. That was a piece of information that you just got, and now you can decide how to interpret that information, okay? So you're going to use your five senses to interpret and process this information differently depending on who you are and what the scenario is, okay? And as you see in the slide, the three different ways we store information. We're not going to get into it right now, but the deletion, distortion, and generalization, those are three different ways of how we store the information. Either we delete it, distort it, or generalize it, depending on what makes us feel more comfortable or depending on what the scenario is that we find ourselves in, okay? So once that information goes through into our mind, then we start to use our past memories to understand what's going on in our brain, okay? So let's go back to the example. Let's say you're going to dinner with somebody and they're late. Now you'll start to come up with ideas using, your senses, and you'll either delete, distort, or generalize the information that was given to you. And so let's say, for example, you recently, or you know somebody that once went to dinner with somebody and that person got into a car accident and died, right? That's going to have an effect on how you process that information. You might use your a past memory to interpret that information in that specific way, okay? So when we interpret, when this information comes into our mind, we will understand it and put a meaning to it depending on a memory that we've had in that scenario, or that will make sense in that specific case, okay? A behavior will be, there will be a behavior based on that thought, which will equal a feeling, which equals a behavior based on that, okay? So let's talk about the science of behavior. We just talked about it a little bit before, but what is the science of how we behave, okay? So when we're given a piece of information, like I said before, we're given a piece of information, and then the first thing that happens is we have a thought based on that specific piece of information. So we get a piece of information, let's say let's talk about athletes real quick, because this is all about sports. An athlete, the coach comes over to the athlete and says, you're going to be given the last shot, and we're believing in you that you're going to hit it. That was a piece of information. You can frame that piece of information in multiple different ways, and every person might be different, right? But now that you're given that piece of information, now you're going to start going through the thoughts. Now thoughts will start going through your mind, which will either be good to your performance or not good to your performance. And that will depend on what the first thing is, what's going on. What are you thinking about in your mind? After those thoughts come the feelings. Okay. So you have a thought, either I'm good enough, either this is going to be good for me or not going to be good for me, either I'm happy with this task or not happy with this task, whatever it is that you're thinking. Now you're supposed to have a feeling. Okay. And that feeling could either be, again, a positive one or a negative one. Either you're ready for the task at hand, either you're ready to show up, either you're ready to hit that final shot that your coach depends on you to make, or you're not. And that will, now you'll start to have high levels of negative stress. You might have anxiety. You might have fear. Okay. And again, these are all based on how you're framing it in your mind. Okay. So fear and excitement are the same thing, right? It's the same feeling. It's just a matter of how you're framing it inside of your head. Okay. So when a coach comes over to you and says, we want you to hit the last shot, we're setting up a play for you, you can either frame that in your mind as excitement, or you can frame it in your mind as fear. And that the end result will be drastically different depending on what that first original thought was. Okay, so you have the thoughts, you have the feelings, and then based on your feelings and your thoughts, you'll have the behavior. Okay, so we act based on how we feel, which stems from how we think. So essentially, it all starts from that first thought that comes from the information that you're given from whoever it is. And it could, by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be words. It could be something you see, it could be something you hear, it could be something you feel. All these different ideas that we get in our head, again, all stem from the thoughts, which could stem from past memories. Okay, so you might be scared of something that you see, so your thought might be a fearful thought because of a past memory that you had. You once blank, and therefore now you think blank, which makes you feel blank, which makes you do blank. Okay, so now the power of interpretation. Again, it's all about how you're framing these things in your mind. Okay, so in this webinar, we're not going to be talking so much about the what it's like to be in peak performance, but more about the psychology of peak performance, meaning what gets you into peak performance, or what makes an athlete or a performer good, and what makes an athlete or a performer choke, right? And it's these things. So you have an event, okay? Event or a piece of information, okay? So now you're given a piece of information. You have an athlete that is on the free throw line, and he has to hit 2 free throws. That's your event. That's your scenario. That's your case, okay? This is what the challenge you're given. This is the task at hand, okay? Now you plus the interpretation, okay? Your first interpretation, your first thought is going to equal your feeling. Either you're ready, either you're excited, either you're motivated, either you feel like you've been ready for this and you practiced for this all this time. That will equal a feeling of X. It'll equal a feeling of excitement. It'll equal a feeling of motivation. It'll equal a feeling of triumph, whatever it is that the athlete or the performer is feeling at that time. Okay, so then once you have the event, once you have that feeling, that's when the behavior comes. The behavior comes after you have that feeling. So again, you have the event plus the interpretation plus the feeling equals your behavior, your act. How you take action is based on that first thought, which will equal the feeling, which equals your behavior. Okay, so one event can cause many different interpretations, right? So for one person, shooting a free throw with 2 seconds left, going up 2 points or 3 points, whatever it is, two athletes might interpret that 2 totally different ways, which is why some athletes will hit the free throw and some athletes won't hit the free throw. That's why some athletes are better than others and some aren't. That's why some performers are able to take pressure and some of them aren't. That's why some choke, that's why some don't. It's because that what's going on inside of your head, what's going on inside of your brain, while all that information is given to you, is laid in front of you, that's what is the difference between a optimal peak performance athlete versus a non-world-class athlete, if you will, okay? So again, the shift in behavior is a shift in thoughts. When you shift your thoughts, that shifts your feelings, which shifts your behavior, okay? So you can act differently depending on how you think. It all stems from how you think. It all stems from the mind. The way to become a unshakable athlete the way to become a master of emotions is by reframing your thoughts. Now, when you, again, this is all the same idea, but when you change what you're thinking about, people make fun of think positive and it'll be positive, or think good, think positive, blah blah blah. They make fun of it, but it's real. Okay, what you think about, especially when you're trying to do something. When you're trying to start a company and you say think positive, it's not necessarily the same idea as when you have that free throw line, think positive. Because when you have to do something imminently, right away, what you're thinking about is going to have an effect on the outcome, the results, okay? Because of that sequence that we talked about, the event plus interpretation plus feeling equals behavior, okay? So we talked about fear and excitement before. Fear and excitement are both the same feeling. It's just a different in mindset. It's a different in how you're thinking, okay? So visioning, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, again, constantly believes and is a strong advocate of your mind makes up the ideas that you want to see, okay? So you can control your future or the end result by using the power of your mind to see something before it happens, okay? So we call this mental visioning in peak performance training. And essentially, it's using the power of imagination to see something that you want to accomplish before it happens, okay? Because really the trick is that our mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So I've talked about this a lot. I have trainings on this. When you envision something in your mind, your mind can't tell the difference between what happened before in your imagination versus what's happening right now. So when you have an athlete that thinks about hitting a free throw with 2 seconds left, and imagination is what I'm talking about. When you vision that in your free time before you go to bed, whatever it is, then when you get there, your mind says, "I've been here before. I've seen this before. I'm comfortable with this. There's a familiarity that I have with this task, with this scenario," which makes you feel much less tense. You're not as anxious. You're more calm. You're more confident. There's so many different advantages to being ready for that scenario because you've seen it before. Okay, so again, thinking of yourself in the future. NLP has cured so many different types of psychological disorders through visioning. Okay, they've taken people that have serious anxiety and using the power of association, disassociation, which I'm going to talk about in a second. When you see yourself through your imagination, you can really control how you interpret and act in certain ways. So example is somebody that's highly stressed, or someone that has high anxiety, or somebody that has social anxiety, let's say. When they see themselves in that state and they choose to change it based on their imagination, that can have an effect on their real self when they show up in real life because they've seen themselves change, okay? So it's all about your state. It's all about what state you're in that present moment. If you're in a bad state, Tony Robbins talks about this a lot. A lot of times your result will depend on your state. So if you're in a bad state, you're going to have bad thoughts, bad feelings, bad behavior. So again, it's a very simple sequence that you have to follow. Again, it starts with the thoughts, leads to feelings, which leads to your behavior, which is your action, okay? So you can take a negative memory and make it positive through the power of visioning, okay? So we're gonna go through, I'm gonna do a quick exercise with you guys, a visioning exercise, just to give you an idea, and I'm sure you'll have some kind of benefit from doing this exercise right now, okay? So let's start off by getting a deep breathing pattern, okay? So wherever you are, whether you're listening to this in your home, in the car, if you're in the car, don't close your eyes because that would be dangerous. But if you're home, close your eyes and start to use a deep breathing pattern. So really inhale and exhale There's many different types of breathing patterns. I've talked about this in some videos and trainings that I've done, but the key is finding a pattern that works for you, finding a pattern that you're comfortable with, and essentially that makes you relax. That's the most important thing. So we'll start with one, which is I call the pyramid breathing pattern, which is a certain amount of seconds up, hold for 1 second, and then the same amount of seconds that you inhale to exhale. Okay, so we'll do 4. So we'll go 4 seconds. So we're going to inhale 4 seconds, hold for 1, and then exhale for 4 seconds. So let's inhale, hold, exhale. And continue to use that pattern. Be mindful of my voice as I talk, and really get comfortable, get relaxed. Let all the anxiety and all the things that are going on around you wither away, as all you have is just your thoughts in front of you. As you get relaxed, think about my voice and imagine that all the stresses of your day are going away as I talk. Now, think of something that you want to do, but you haven't accomplished it yet. It can be sending that email. It can be going to the store and buying that thing. It could be that text, that conversation that you have to have. Whatever it is, something that you're holding back from doing, you're procrastinating about for whatever reason. Okay, so think about something that you come up with, something that you haven't accomplished yet or haven't done that you need to do. Now, I want you to be mindful of how you're showing up. Think about yourself. Envision yourself in that scenario, not being accomplished in that thing that you're trying to do. See yourself there. Imagine what you look like, and be mindful of what the scenario you're in. Is it black and white, or do you see yourself in color? Do you see yourself big, or do you see yourself small? How far are you from this image that you see of yourself? Are you looking at yourself through your eyes, or is it a bird's eye view? Be mindful of what you see and how you see it, how it comes up for you. Now, association versus disassociation is how you see yourself. Okay, so you can see yourself from far away, or you can see yourself in the specific scenario that you find yourself in. So again, you can see yourself through your eyes, or you can see yourself through someone else's set of eyes. So if you're going to imagine a musician, maybe you're the one holding the violin on the stage, or maybe you see yourself holding the violin as a person in the audience. So that's what association versus disassociation is. Are you disassociated to the image that you see, or are you associated to the image that you see? So now that you've really got clear on what you see and the task that you want to do but you haven't done yet, if you're not already disassociated, I want you to disassociate yourself from the image that you see. So take a step back. So if you're looking at yourself from your eyes, take a step back and kind of see yourself from a different view, someone else's view, someone else's pair of eyes. And see yourself there, not doing the task that you want to do, you want to accomplish. And as you do this, disconnect the emotions that are connected to this task that you're not doing, whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, and leave those emotions with yourself that you disassociated yourself from. I know there's a little bit of a mix-up in words, but stick with me. Now, as you see yourself disassociated, imagine the other self that you're looking at accomplishing the task. Again, whether it's the text, whether it's the email, whether it's the meeting, whether it's something you got to confront somebody about, imagine them doing it and accomplishing that task. See them, how they feel once the task is completed. See what their emotions look like. What's their facial expressions? What's their body language look like? See the smile on their face as they realize that they've accomplished something that they've been waiting so long to accomplish. And it wasn't so bad. It wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. It wasn't as hard as they thought it would be. See the joy on their face as they're on their way home from completing this task. And the anxiety that's gone and the worry that's no longer there because they've accomplished this task. Now that you've felt all those emotions of your other self, I want you to now come back and merge these two selves. So your disassociated self and your associated self. Make them come back to one. So essentially go back to your imagined self and feel what that other self was feeling. Feel as though you accomplished that specific task, as if it's already over, as if you did it, and how good it feels. Now open your eyes. What we just did there is we've merged the gap between another side of yourself. So you imagined yourself in another scenario, in a different state, and not in a state of helplessness and hopelessness and anxiety and fear, but rather you disassociated yourself. You disconnected yourself from all those emotions that are holding you back right now, that are causing you to procrastinate. And you disconnected yourself and you allowed yourself to do the task without all those emotions that are connected to it. And you did it. And now that you've merged those two ideas, those two selves together, now you can kind of get an idea of what it will feel like to do it. And it's essentially very motivating for you to go ahead and do that now because you've seen it. You know what it feels like. You know what you will feel like once that task is completed. So it's very important to go ahead and take action on that exercise that we just did. Remember that feeling that you felt once you saw yourself completing the task, and have that in mind the whole time while you're getting that task in motion of starting to do it, because that's going to help you accomplish that. So again, this is all part of visioning, and there's hundreds of exercises that we use to get someone in a specific state when they're not in the right state. So for an athlete that's afraid to go out and compete on the floor or on the field or on the course, using the power of imagination and using the power of your mind to see what you want to perform like is very powerful and very helpful, okay? So lastly, we're going to talk about mindset, okay? So how your brain is wired, or again, your state, we talked about this earlier, is going to depend on how you show up. If you're in a negative state, you're going to have negative thoughts, negative feelings, and undesirable behavior, which is going to be actions that you're unsatisfied with, okay? So being in a bad state for an athlete is going to be harmful to their thoughts when they're performing, which is going to be harmful and bad for their feelings that are coming up, which is going to be harmful to the results that they get, because they want a different result, but because of their state, it's not allowing them to get those results and the behavior that they want, okay? So essentially, it's all about teaching your mind how to think in order to get the results you want, okay? So you can change your state at any moment, okay? you don't have to be in a specific state that you find yourself in. Some people are like, I'm sad, I'm mad. Right now I'm going to be mad because I'm unhappy and I don't like what's going on around me. You can change that at any second, at any moment you want. It's a choice. It's a switch. It's just a matter of changing and not being satisfied and not allowing yourself to stay in that state. And one of the ways we do this is changing your physiology, okay? I've done a video on this before. You can find this on YouTube. Changing your state, your confidence is based on your physiology, okay? Studies have shown that somebody that's scrunched and someone that's very into themselves, very body language that's inward, is going to have less levels of testosterone, which is going to have less levels of confidence. Your confidence is going to be way lower if you have less testosterone, okay? And this is true whether you're a man or a woman. Even the women have less testosterone, confidence still comes from testosterone, okay? So the more big you get with your body and your physiology, the more testosterone that you give into your body chemically, and the more confidence you'll have by default, okay? So it's just a matter, you don't have to want to be or reach a certain state. Just changing your physiology will give you that confidence and will change your state by default, regardless of whether you want to or not. It's going to happen automatically, okay? So one of the ways you can do that, aside from visioning is really great in changing how you're thinking, but your physiology will change your state, okay? You can change how you show up based on your physiology, okay? And we talk about this a lot at Yellow Mentality. Yellow Mentality is all about changing your state. It's all about that mental side of the sport. It's all about that mental side of the performance. How do you show up? What's going on inside of your brain while you're trying to perform at an optimal level, at a peak level, okay? And to learn more about what we do at Yellow Mentality, go on and check out yellowmentality.com. Again, my name is Mendy, signing off. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And subscribe to the channel to be in touch with more of these webinars and the good videos that we have to help our performers and athletes, and anybody that's looking to reach a peak level of optimal performance. You don't have to be an athlete or a performer, just the regular 9-to-5 person or regular entrepreneur that's trying to reach the max of what their potential is. Stay tuned and we'll bring that over to you guys. All the best.